Oh, poor Amy Klobuchar. So close to the vice presidential nomination, and yet so far away. And listen, man, if you followed me for any even brief length of time, you know that I am no fan at all whatsoever of Amy Klobuchar. And there is one reason for that. Amy Klobuchar treats her staff like dirt. I spent a decade of my life studying workplace bullying. I wrote an entire dissertation on workplace bullying. I have worked with organizations around the dang country to try to reduce and manage workplace bullying and the fallout from it when it happens in organizations. So my patience for people, especially in powerful positions that treat their staff like dirt by throwing binders at them, making them demean themselves, doing constant power plays, it's my patience for them is really non-existent. It doesn't exist at all. I have no patience for it. And, as evidenced by the fact that Amy Klobuchar actually had the highest turnover rate in the entire Senate from 2001 to 2016. It's based on a study from Politico. She lost 36% of her staff every single year, far outpacing anyone else in the Senate because she treats them like dirt. And for that reason, I was never going to vote for a ticket with Amy Klobuchar on it. Even when I was vote blue no matter who, I was never going to vote for Amy Klobuchar under any circumstances, no. And then, of course, Amy Klobuchar made it onto the short list for Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate, but that seems to all be crashing down to a grinding halt. And I love it. I love it. I really, really do. And the irony of it is it is actually a little bit unfair. It is actually a little bit unfair, but you know what? I don't actually think it's fair when your boss demeans you every day or throws things at you or things like that. So this is karma, Amy. This is what karma looks like, to get your chances of being vice president knocked out of your grasp because of an unfair situation. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's happening. Klobuchar on defense as Floyd death puts spotlight on record. Senator Amy Klobuchar, D. Minnesota, defended her record as a county prosecutor on Friday after George Floyd's death in police custody, which has shocked the country and sparked days of protest in Minneapolis, the largest city in her home state. Klobuchar specifically pushed back on reports circulated online falsely accusing her of declining to press charges in 2006 against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who has been charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter in Floyd's death. So essentially the story was that Amy Klobuchar had the chance to press charges on this guy and she didn't do it, and that's wrong. That's not actually what happened. So it did really get painted in a very mischaracterized way online. And I'll admit, I fell for it too. All sorts of people were sending me this article and I was like, oh my God, Amy Klobuchar is going down. I was so excited. And then I read it and I was like, well, it's a little bit unfair. And but that's the way life is. So let's see what she said. The idea that I somehow declined a case which has been reported on some news blogs against this officer is absolutely false. It is a lie. I don't know what else to say. Then it is a lie. The case was investigated. The investigation continued into a time where I was already sworn into the U.S. Senate. It was handled and sent to the grand jury by my successor. So really, it kind of is a little bit of fake news on this part, but we all know that in politics, perception is reality, and it's all about optics and perception. And let's be honest, no one really liked Amy Klobuchar anyway, and they were probably just looking for a reason to take her off the short list. And now, according to the Daily Beast, we have that reason. Team Biden on Klobuchar, we need to avoid her. Boo, hoo, Amy. The smallest violin in the world is playing just for you. Single tear going down my cheek. Oh, however, will I survive this blow to Amy Klobuchar? Klobuchar has been on the short list for Biden's VP spot since she led the Democratic field in endorsing his candidacy after the South Carolina win. That all changed this week. This is from May 29th, yesterday, Friday, from the Daily Beast. In recent weeks, Amy Klobuchar has positioned herself as a leading contender in the race to join former Vice President Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket. But growing civil unrest in her home state of Minnesota in response to the death of an unarmed black man at the hands of a white police officer, and renewed scrutiny of her record as the top prosecutor in the state's largest county, appears to have severely hampered her ambition to be the Democratic Party's vice presidential nominee. Vertiginous, a campaign advisor said in a one-word text describing Klobuchar's fall in the rankings of potential running mates. The three-term senator's drop has been so swift that a planned Minnesota digital event with Dr. Joe Biden and coronavirus first responders scheduled for Friday was pulled, according to a source familiar with campaign deliberations, partly because we need to avoid her. According to a Biden campaign official, all of Dr. Biden's virtual events on Friday were canceled because of George Floyd's tragic killing and the events that followed, and the decision had nothing to do with the fundraiser Dr. Biden was scheduled to participate in with Senator Klobuchar. I mean, we'll see about that. Like, watch what happens in the coming weeks, because it's not like they can stay silent forever. They're going to have to do some stuff. Let's see if they invite Amy onto the campaign trail with them. My money is on no. Still, top figures in Biden world couldn't help but remark on the coverage of the events in Minnesota at the pivotal moment for Klobuchar. This is very tough timing for Amy Klobuchar, who I respect so much. House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, who was instrumental in Biden's victory in the South primary, in which a phone call with reporters on Friday, the Los Angeles Times reported, the timing is tough. Then we talk about George Floyd. I don't think we need to reinvent that, or revisit that rather. We know that happened there. Recent anger at Klobuchar has focused on a shooting of a civilian involving Chauvin in October 2006, months before Klobuchar would leave the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for the U.S. Senate. On social media Thursday night, progressives seized on reports that Klobuchar declined to prosecute Chauvin in the case. Oh, it's coming from progressives. I didn't realize that. Of course it's coming from progressives, because Amy Klobuchar is very moderate. Listen, if Amy Klobuchar was not a raging bully, she probably honestly would have had my vote, because she was very impressive with the debates. I like that she's right down the middle. I like that she has common sense stuff, but the attitude, man, no. For all the people who complain about Trump's attitude and the way he treats his staff and you know, all that stuff, like, Klobuchar is doing the same thing. So I could never, ever get on board with that. But it's funny, I think, that it was coming from progressives. Her successor, Mike Freeman, issued a statement Friday saying he, not Klobuchar, was responsible for Chauvin's prosecution, which resulted in a grand jury declining to charge the officer. Appearing on MSNBC Friday, Klobuchar hit back against these reports, saying this idea that I somehow declined a case, which has been reported on some news blogs and then sent out on the internet against this officer, is absolutely false. So Amy Klobuchar is upset at fake news. Isn't it cute? Isn't it precious? Isn't it amazing when someone's chickens come home to roost? I just love it. I love it. I love watching them eat themselves. Listen, I've said from the very beginning, my hatred for the Democratic Party knows no bounds. Like, I am pissed. I am pissed that I was lied to for such a long time. I'm pissed at myself for buying into it. It's just like, if I could burn down the entire Democratic Party in a not a literal way, in a figurative way, not literally, I don't want anyone to die in a fire, but if I could burn down the entire Democratic Party and say, start over from scratch, you've lost your privileges, you need to start again, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know if I can do that, but, you know, who knows? Maybe I can help facilitate the spark that causes that. I mean, that's why I walked away from the Democratic Party in the first place. It's why I've continued to run my mouth on the internet, is it needs fundamental change. That's just the way it is. She also bristled at questions from Andrea Mitchell about whether she should drop out of contention for the VP nod. This is Joe Biden's decision, Klobuchar said. He will make that decision. He'll decide who he is considering. Wah, 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 wah. Amy Klobuchar is not getting that VP spot, and I just love that this has actually come in kind of an unfair way, because isn't that, it's so serendipitous. It's it's justifiably unfair because these people treat everyone around them with the same gloves. And now they're experiencing the same treatment that they've delivered unto others. I love it. I think it's great. We'll see who Joe Biden picks for VP. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be interesting. My money's still, for some reason, my gut is telling me Stacey Abrams, which I think would be hilarious. But we'll see what happens. I could absolutely be wrong. None of us really know. But I am pretty sure it's not going to be Amy. And for right now, at least, that's good enough for me.